Witches control you because you don't know these 5 psalms. For 12 years, I was a curse specialist in a witchcraft coven in Nairobi. My job was to block the prayers of Christians and ensure that every curse we sent against them remained effective. But there were 5 psalms we could never overcome. 5 psalms that didn't just protect those who prayed them. These psalms send our curses back to us every time. By the grace of God, I have been set free, and now I reveal the weapons the kingdom of darkness fears most. In this testimony, I will reveal the 5 judgment psalms that send every curse back to the witch who sent it. These are not ordinary scriptures, they are spiritual weapons of reversal, and when I'm finished, you'll understand why covens hold emergency meetings. Whenever a Christian begins to pray these psalms consistently, if you have experienced things that don't make sense, repeated failures without logical explanation, opportunities that vanish at the last minute, health problems that doctors can't diagnose, financial setbacks that seem programmed and coordinated, relationships that collapse for no apparent reason, dreams where you are chased, attacked, bitten, or fed strange foods, listen to me carefully. There is a very good chance that someone has sent a curse against you, and the reason this curse is still working is that you haven't activated the spiritual mechanism that sends it back to its source. You see, most Christians understand defense, they know how to pray for protection, they know how to invoke the blood of Jesus, they know how to ask God to protect them, and these prayers are good, these prayers are necessary, but defense alone is not enough. Because a curse that is blocked does not disappear, it waits, it circles, it looks for weaknesses, and finally, if the Christian grows weary, if the Christian is distracted, if the Christian has a night when they forget to pray, this curse finds its way. What most Christians don't understand is that God has given them offensive weapons, weapons that don't just block the curse, but reverse it. Weapons that take the curse and send it back to the witch who cast it with the full force of divine justice behind her, and these weapons are found in 5 specific psalms that David wrote under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit precisely for this purpose. In the kingdom of darkness, we fear many things. We feared the blood of Jesus when believers applied it correctly, we feared the midnight prayers of disciplined intercessors, we feared fasting combined with targeted declarations. But there was nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, that terrified us more than a Christian who understood the judgment psalms and prayed them with authority. You must understand how rare such Christians were. Of the believers we were monitoring, perhaps 2 or 3 knew the judgment psalms, perhaps only 1 actually prayed them consistently. The vast majority of Christians had no idea these spiritual weapons existed. They prayed generic prayers of protection and wondered why the curses kept coming. They bound and unbound, they declared and decreed, but they never activated the specific reversal mechanism contained in these 5 psalms. That will change today, because after hearing what I am about to tell you, you will never face a curse in the same way again. Let me explain why. When a Christian prays an ordinary prayer of protection, that prayer creates a shield. It prevents the curse from reaching them. That's good, it's necessary, but the curse itself doesn't die. It hovers, it waits, it looks for a breach in the shield, and the moment the Christian becomes tired, distracted, angry, or discouraged, that shield weakens, and the curse passes. But the judgment psalms operate on a completely different level. These psalms don't just block the curse, they reverse it. They take the curse and send it back to the person who sent it with multiplied force, and this is what had us panicking. Once a judgment psalm activated the reversal, the witch couldn't do anything to stop it. The curse became a boomerang, and the witch who sent it became the target. I'm going to reveal these 5 psalms to you today, and I'm going to tell you the stories of what happened when Christians prayed them against our coven. But first, you need to understand something. This isn't revenge, it's divine justice. The Bible is very clear that those who dig a pit for others will themselves fall. Those who set a trap for the innocent will be caught in their own trap. God did not create these psalms for believers to attack people, He created them for believers to activate the spiritual law of reversal, which sends any weapon formed against them back to its source. Now, let me begin. The first psalm, Psalm 35, the first judgment psalm that sends curses back to the sender is Psalm 35. This psalm begins with these words, Lord, defend me from those who contend with me, fight against those who fight against me. When I operated in the kingdom of darkness, we called Psalm 35 the tribunal psalm. The reason we called it that is because this psalm does something most Christians don't understand. It takes your spiritual case before the divine tribunal. It summons God as your advocate and commands heaven to fight your battle for you. Most Christians take Psalm 35 as a general prayer. They say the words quickly and move on. And when a Christian, with understanding, authority, and the specific intention of reversing curses, something happens in the spiritual realm that is absolutely devastating for witches. Let me tell you what happened when we targeted a woman I'll call Mother Rose. Rose was a teacher in Nairobi, a quiet, gentle woman who minded her own business, taught children during the week, and went to church on Sundays. She had no idea that her own sister-in-law had hired our coven to destroy her life. The sister-in-law was jealous because Rose's husband had been promoted to his government position and was building a new house. The jealousy had been simmering for years. Finally, the sister-in-law came to our coven and paid a large sum of money to have Rose's life dismantled. The mission was complete: destroy her marriage, make her children sick, and cause her husband to lose his promotion, stop the construction of the house, create confusion and poverty where there was peace and progress. We sent the first wave of curses on a Friday night. On Monday, Rose's youngest child developed a mysterious fever. On Wednesday, her husband came home and told her there was a problem with her promotion and it might be cancelled. The following week, the contractor building their house called to say there was a dispute over the land documents and construction had to stop. Everything was working perfectly. The curses landed exactly as planned. Our coven celebrated. But Rose had a prayer partner, an older woman from her church who had experienced spiritual warfare. This woman came to visit Rose when she heard about the problems. She looked at Rose and said, "This isn't natural. Someone has sent something against your family." Then she taught Rose to pray Psalm 35 every morning at 5 o'clock a.m., not just to read it, but to pray it with intention, with authority, with a specific application to her situation. Rose began praying Psalm 35 the very next morning. She woke up at 5 o'clock a.m., knelt by her bed, and prayed each verse of the psalm, thinking about her situation. When she came to the verse that says, "Let those who seek my life be put to shame and confusion," she specifically declared, "Lord, let those who have sent these curses against my family be covered with shame." And when she came to the verse that says, "Let ruin overtake them suddenly," she declared, "Lord, let the destruction meant for my house return to its sender without warning." She prayed this psalm every morning for 14 days. The third one day, I began to feel something strange during my rituals, a resistance I had never known. The curses I held against Rose's family began to feel heavy, as if I were pushing against a wall that was pushing back. The next day, the situation deteriorated dramatically. During a midnight ritual meant to strengthen the curses, 3 members of our coven fell ill simultaneously, not an ordinary illness, but a sudden, violent, unexplained one. One collapsed during the ritual itself. Her body went stiff, and she fell off her stool. Another began vomiting uncontrollably right there in the middle of the ritual circle, disrupting the incantation. A third developed such a severe headache that she couldn't stand, couldn't see clearly, couldn't form words. We had to carry all 3 out of the ritual room. Our Grand Witch, the one with over 40 years of experience, she immediately knew what was happening. She said, "Someone has taken Psalm 35, we must stop this mission now, or we will all fall." But it was already too late. On the 14th day, when Rose finished her weeks of praying Psalm 35, something devastating happened. The sister-in-law who had paid for the curses had an accident. She was cooking and slipped, falling directly into her own cooking fire. She was severely burned all down the left side of her body. She was hospitalized for 3 weeks, but that wasn't all. While she was in the hospital, her own husband discovered the money she had hidden, the money she had paid to our coven. When he confronted her, the truth came out. He discovered that she had hired witches against his own family. He kicked her out of the house when she came out of the hospital. She lost her marriage, she lost her reputation, she lost her peace, Everything she had wanted to do to Rose happened to her instead, and meanwhile, Rose's situation completely reversed. Her child's fever disappeared overnight, her husband's promotion was confirmed with an even bigger raise. The land dispute was resolved, and construction resumed. In 6 weeks, everything that had been attacked was restored and multiplied. Such is the power of Psalm 35. It doesn't just block, it reverses. It takes what was meant to destroy you and sends it back to the center. But here's what you need to understand. Psalm 35 doesn't work like a magic spell. It works when you pray it with an understanding of what you're doing. You're not just reading words, you're activating a spiritual law, the law that says whoever digs a pit, they will fall. When you pray Psalm 35, you're doing 3 things at once. First, you're calling on God as your advocate. You're saying, Lord, defend me. You are not fighting yourself. You are calling upon the Supreme Judge to plead your case. Secondly, you activate the warrior angels. Verse 5 says that he heals like chaff blown by the wind, and that the angel of the Lord drives them away. When you pray this verse, you release angels with a specific mission: drive out those who are hunting you. Thirdly, you activate the law of reversal. Verse 8 says that ruin will suddenly overtake them, that they will be caught in the net they have laid, that they will fall into it and perish. This is a legal declaration in the spiritual realm. You are not cursing anyone, you are activating a law that God has already established. Now, let me tell you how to pray Psalm 35 effectively. Get up early, preferably before dawn. The hours between 4 and 6 in the morning are the most powerful for this type of prayer because that is when witchcraft operations are most active. Get down on your knees. Posture matters in the spiritual realm. Kneeling shows humility before God and authority over the enemy. Read the psalm slowly, verse by verse, but after each key verse, stop and apply it personally. For example, when you read, "Let him be ashamed and confounded, those who seek my life," stop and say, "Lord, let him who has sent this sickness, this financial problem, this conflict in my marriage be covered with shame and confusion." Be specific. Don't pray in general terms. Name the manifestations of the curse you are experiencing. Do this for at least 14 consecutive days. The number 14 is significant in the spiritual realm. It is 2 by 7, the number of divine perfection. Consistency creates a spiritual momentum that witches cannot break. And here's what's crucial: don't tell anyone that you are praying Psalm 35. Witches have informants everywhere. If the person who sent the curse learns that you are praying this psalm, they may try to intensify the attacks before the reversal is complete. Pray in secret, let God fight for you and see what happens. The second psalm, Psalm 109, the second judgment psalm I will reveal is Psalm 109. If Psalm 35 is the psalm of the tribunal, Psalm 109 is the psalm of the execution of judgment. This psalm is so powerful that in our coven, we called it the Psalm of Fire. Why? Because when a Christian prayed Psalm 109 correctly, it was as if spiritual flames came out of their mouth and consumed everything that had been sent against them. Psalm 109 contains statements that make witches tremble. Listen to some of these verses. Let a wicked man rise up against him, let an accuser stand at his right hand. When he is judged, let him be found guilty, and let even his prayer be considered a sin. May his days be few, may another take his office, may the iniquity of his fathers be remembered before the Lord, and may the sin of his mother never be blotted out. These verses are not just words, they are spiritual decrees. When a believer prays them with faith and authority, they activate judgments in the spiritual realm that even the most powerful witches cannot undo. Let me tell you what happened to a man I will call Brother Thomas. Thomas was a successful businessman in Kampala. His business was growing rapidly, and he employed several people, but one of his employees, jealous of his success, came to our coven and paid for Thomas to lose everything. The curse was specific. The curse was cast on a Tuesday evening to make all of Thomas's clients leave him. It was to make his suppliers refuse to work with him, to make his employees betray him, and to drive him into bankruptcy. Within a week, Thomas had lost 3 of his biggest clients. They all left without explanation, simple phone calls saying they no longer wanted to do business with him. Within 2 weeks, 2 of his suppliers raised their prices unreasonably, forcing him to look elsewhere. Within 3 weeks, he discovered that some of his employees were stealing money from the company. Everything seemed to be collapsing at once. Thomas prayed, he gambled, but things only got worse. Then a visiting prophet came to his church. This prophet didn't know Thomas personally, but during the service, he pointed at Thomas and said, "Someone has sent a spirit of witchcraft of failure against your business, and God says you must pray Psalm 109 for 21 days, 1 day each morning without fail." Thomas obeyed. The next morning at 5 o'clock a.m., he began praying Psalm 109. He didn't just read it. He proclaimed it forcefully. When he came to the verse, "May these days be few, may another take his office," he declared, "Lord, may the one who has plotted against my business lose his own position, may someone else take his place." On the 10th day, something remarkable happened. The employee who had paid for the curse was caught stealing money from another company. He was arrested and imprisoned. Everyone was shocked because this man had seemed so respectable, but in the spiritual realm, Psalm 109 had triggered his downfall. The 21st is a day, when Thomas finished his 21 days of praying Psalm 109, all his customers returned, but that wasn't all. They came back with larger orders. Suppliers who had raised their prices offered him discounts, apologizing for the misunderstanding. New, loyal employees came to replace those he had betrayed. Within 3 months, Thomas's business was twice the size it had been before the attack. Psalm 109 hadn't just blocked the curse, it had reversed it with such force that everything the enemy had stolen was restored and multiplied. But let me warn you about something important concerning Psalm 109. This psalm is extremely powerful, that's why you must pray it with a pure heart. If you pray Psalm 109 with a spirit of personal revenge, it can backfire on you. This psalm is not meant to attack people because they have offended you. It is meant to reverse the spiritual attacks sent against you by witchcraft. Before praying Psalm 109, make sure your heart is right before God. Forgive all those who have hurt you naturally. Then, with a pure heart, pray Psalm 109 against witchcraft operations. Here is how to pray it effectively. Start with verse 1 where David says, "My God, whom I praise, do not remain silent," and declares, "Lord, I call to you now, do not remain silent about what is happening to me." Then move on to the verses that describe what the enemies are doing. Verses 2 through 5 speak of lies, hatred, and baseless accusations. Apply them to your situation. Lord, I'm being attacked without reason, lies have been spoken about me, evil has been repaid for good. Then pray the verses of judgment with authority. Verses 6 through 20, they contain powerful declarations of reversal. Pray them slowly, allowing each decree to take root in the spiritual realm. Do this for at least 21 days. The number 20 and 1 represents spiritual perfection. 3 times this is the time needed for the complete reversal to manifest. And here's the key, maintain consistency. Don't miss a single day. If you miss a day, start again. The enemy is counting on your inconsistency. He knows that if you stop, he can reinsert its attacks, but if you maintain the 20 and a full day, the reversal will be total and final. The third psalm, Psalm 83. Now, I will reveal the third judgment psalm, Psalm 83. In our coven, we call this the Psalm of Collective Exposure. Why? Because unlike Psalm 35, which deals with individual attacks, and Psalm 109, which reverses personal curses, Psalm 83 exposes and destroys collective conspiracies. Let me explain something you need to understand. Witchcraft rarely works alone. When a serious curse is sent against you, it is almost never the work of a single witch. It is a coordinated operation involving several people in the spiritual realm and often several people in the natural realm who don't even know they are being used. For example, when we received an important assignment against someone, we would form what we called a circle of curses. This circle could include 5 to 10 witches working together, plus family members of the person who fueled jealousy, plus colleagues who spread rumors, plus neighbors who watched and reported, plus acquaintances who blocked opportunities. All of this formed a demonic alliance against a single person, and this alliance was invisible to the victim. They saw only the manifestations, the failure, the closed doors, the conflicts, the illness, but they didn't see the organized conspiracy behind it all. Psalm 83 exposes this conspiracy. Listen to these powerful verses. O God, do not be silent, do not keep still, O God, for behold, your enemies are agitated, those who hate you lift up their heads, they devise cunning schemes against your people, they conspire against those you cherish. These verses describe exactly what is happening, a conspiracy, a plot, an alliance. Then the psalm continues with a devastating prayer, treat them like Midian, like Sisera, like Jabin at the Kishon River, let him treat them like manure for the earth, treat their leaders like Orban-Zeb, and all their princes like Zebach and Salmonona. When a Christian prays these verses with faith, they are not praying against individuals, they are praying against the demonic alliance itself. They are asking God to break the conspiracy, to expose the conspirators, and to deal with them as he dealt with the historical enemies of Israel who conspired against his people. Let me tell you what happened to a woman I will call Sir Mary. Mary worked at a large company in Nairobi. She was competent, hard-working, and respected, but several of her colleagues, jealous of her success, formed an alliance against her. They spread lies about her. They sabotaged her work. They blocked her promotions. They created conflicts with clients, and one of them even contacted our coven to bolster their efforts with witchcraft. The curse placed against Mary was specific, to make everything she touched fail, to destroy her reputation, to ultimately cause her to lose her job. The attacks started slowly. Documents she was preparing disappeared, emails she sent never arrived, important meetings were scheduled when she was away. Then things escalated. Clients began complaining about her for things she had never done. Her supervisor began receiving anonymous reports that she was incompetent. Other employees started avoiding working with her. Mary prayed, she played games, she recited verses, but nothing seemed to work. In fact, things only got worse. She was about to be fired. Then an intercessor from her church, a woman with spiritual discernment, called her. This woman said, Mary, it's not just one person against you, it's an alliance, a group of people are working together against you, you must pray Psalm 83. Mary asked why that psalm specifically. The intercessor explained that Psalm 3 doesn't deal with individual enemies, it deals with collective conspiracies, it exposes hidden alliances and destroys them. Mary began praying Psalm 83 every morning at 5 o'clock a.m. She prayed it with a clear understanding of what she was doing. She wasn't praying against specific individuals, she was praying against the demonic alliance that was operating against her. On the third day, something remarkable began to happen. One of the colleagues who had been most active in the campaign against her had a car accident, not serious, but enough to keep him home for a week. While he was away, someone else discovered emails on his computer showing that he had been manipulating information against Mary. On the seventh day, another member of the alliance made a serious mistake on an important project. His error caused a financial loss for the company, and he was suspended. On the seventh day, the person who had paid our coven was transferred to another department without notice. It was as if, one by one, the members of the alliance were being dismantled. But that wasn't all. On the seventh day, Mary's supervisor received an anonymous email, but this time from someone who was telling the truth. This email explained the entire conspiracy against Mary, who was involved, what tactics they were using, and why they were doing it. The supervisor investigated. When the truth came out, 5 people were disciplined, 2 were fired, and the others were warned. Mary not only kept her job, she was promoted, and the alliance that had conspired against her for months was completely exposed and destroyed. Such is the power of Psalm 83. It doesn't just treat the symptoms, it exposes and destroys the root cause, the conspiratorial alliance itself. Now, listen carefully to how to pray Psalm 83 effectively. First, recognize that you are not fighting against just one person. Even if you think you know who is behind your problems, understand that there is likely a larger alliance that you cannot see. Second, pray verses 1-4, which expose every hidden alliance against me, reveal who the conspirators are, break their unity. Third, pray verses 9-18, which call for judgment, but do this with a heart that seeks God's justice, not personal revenge. Say, Lord, treat this alliance as you have treated the historical enemies of your people, let their plans against me become their own trap. Do this for at least 7 consecutive days. The number 7 represents perfection. 7 days of praying. Psalm 83 will bring about a complete exposure of every hidden conspiracy, and here's what's powerful, you don't even need to know who the conspirators, God knows them. Your job is not to uncover them, your job is to pray the psalm with faith and let God do the rest. The 4th Psalm, Psalm 140, the 4th judgment psalm I am going to reveal is Psalm 140. This psalm is what we in the Coven called the Psalm of the Reversed Trap. This is the most specific psalm for those who have been trapped by witchcraft. Listen to these verses. Deliver me, O Lord, from wicked men. Preserve me from violent men who devise evil in their hearts and stir up strife all day long. They sharpen their tongues like a serpent's. The venom of vipers is under their lips. Psalm 140 acknowledges a truth that many Christians ignore. Some people are constantly plotting evil against you. These are not occasional thoughts of jealousy. It is a deliberate and continuous meditation on your destruction. They think about it in the morning. They think about it in the evening. They plan. They plot. They look for ways to bring you down. And when these evil thoughts are combined with witchcraft, they become extremely dangerous spiritual traps. But here is what Psalm 140 does. Verses 9-11 say, May those around me be covered with the insult of their own lips. May burning coals be thrown upon them. May he be cast into the fire, into the depths from which he will not rise again. May a slanderer not dwell in the land. This is a prayer of complete overthrow. The burning coals they have prepared for you will fall upon them. The fire they have kindled for you will consume them. The pits they have dug for you will swallow them up. Let me tell you what happened to a young man I will call Paul. Paul was betrothed to a beautiful young woman in Mombasa, but the young woman's mother did not want the marriage. She wanted her daughter to marry someone else, someone richer, so she came to our coven and paid to have Paul trapped. The curse was the plan was elaborate. Paul was made to make a serious mistake that would cause the young woman to lose all respect for him, and then the other suitor was introduced at the perfect moment. The trap was carefully prepared. Situations were created to make Paul appear irresponsible, immature, and untrustworthy. Lies were planted, misunderstandings orchestrated. Little by little, the young woman's trust in Paul eroded. She began to doubt her choice, and the other suitor waited in the wings, ready to intervene. But Paul had an uncle who was a powerful intercessor. This uncle discerned what was happening. He told Paul, "A trap has been set for your marriage, but you must pray Psalm 140 for 40 days, every day without fail." Paul obeyed. Every morning at 5 a.m., he prayed Psalm 140. He prayed it slowly, intentionally, and with faith. He declared, "Lord, deliver me from the snares set against my marriage. May those who plot my downfall fall into their own trap." On the 20th day, something unexpected happened. The young woman's mother, the one who had paid for the curse, had a conversation with the other suitor she favored. In this conversation, unbeknownst to her, she overheard her mother and this man discussing their plan to break up her marriage to Paul. She heard how they had conspired together, how they had created situations to make Paul look bad. The truth was exposed. The young woman confronted her mother. She was furious. She broke off all contact with the other suitor, and her love for Paul, instead of being destroyed, was strengthened because she realized how precious he was to her and how many others had conspired to take him away. Paul and his fiancée were married as planned, and the mother whose trap had been exposed lost her own daughter's respect for years. The trap she had set had, rather, trapped her. This is the power of Psalm 140. Now, how can we pray Psalm 140 effectively? First, recognize that you are in a trap. Many Christians are trapped but don't realize it. They think it's just bad luck or difficult circumstances. But if you see repeated patterns where you are constantly misunderstood, slandered, or placed in compromising situations, it is probably a spiritual trap. Second, pray verses 1 through 5, which describe traps. Be specific. Say, Lord, I recognize that traps have been set for me in my marriage, my job, and my finances. Deliver me now. Third, pray verses 9 through 11, which reverse traps. Declare that the traps set for you will capture those who set them, and that the evil they planned will fall back on their own heads. Do this for at least 40 days. The number 40 in the Bible represents a period of testing and transformation. 40 days of praying. Psalm 140 transforms a trapped situation into complete freedom. The fifth Psalm, Psalm 91, with a declaration of judgment. Now, I will reveal the fifth Psalm. This one surprised us, even me. When I was in the coven, we knew Psalm 91. Every witch knew Psalm 91. We called it the soldier's psalm because Christians who prayed it were difficult to penetrate. But here's what we didn't know until it was too late. There is a way to pray the psalm that transforms it from a psalm of protection into a psalm of judgment. Most Christians take Psalm 91 for safety. They say, "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty." They take it so that the angels will guard them. They take it so that they will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day. And all this is good, all of this is true. But here is the secret the coven discovered the hard way. When you add a reversal statement to Psalm 91, it becomes something entirely different. It becomes a psalm that not only protects you but actively destroys the witches who are trying to get to you. Let me explain. Psalm 91 verse 8 says, "Only with your eyes will you look and see the recompense of the wicked." Most Christians skip this verse. They don't understand it, but this verse is a verse of judgment. It promises that you will see the wicked punished, and when you pray this verse with authority, you activate divine judgment against those who have sent evil against you. Verse 13 says, "You will tread on the lion and the cobra, you will trample the great lion and the serpent." In witchcraft, the serpent represents the power of the coven. When you pray this verse and declare that you trample the serpents underfoot, you are declaring that you crush the power of every witch sent against you. And here's the most powerful part: when you combine Psalm 91 with a specific declaration of reversal, you create a spiritual fortress that witches cannot penetrate and that actively returns every attack. Let me tell you what happened to a family I'll call the Okot family. This family was under a generational curse that had lasted for 3 generations. Every man in the family would die before the age of 50. Every woman in the family would either remain childless or lose her children young. It was a consistent, predictable, and devastating pattern. The current head of the family, Mr. Okot, was 47 years old. He knew that according to the family pattern, he only had 3 years left to live. He was terrified. He had tried everything. He had gone to see pastors. He had received deliverance. He had tried prayer, but nothing broke the pattern. Then someone told him about an elderly intercessor at a nearby church. This woman had a reputation for breaking generational curses. Mr. Okot went to see her. The woman listened to him recount his family's story. Then she said something that shocked him. "Your family hasn't been praying the right psalms. You're praying for protection, but you must pray for reversal. I'm going to teach you 5 judgment psalms, and you're going to gather your entire family, all the men, all the women, all the children, and you're going to pray these psalms together for 40 days. Mr. Okot obeyed. He gathered his entire extended family, 23 people in total. He explained what they were going to do. Some were skeptical, but faced with the threat of death and childlessness, they all agreed to try. Every morning at 5 a.m., for 40 days, these 23 people gathered in one house and together, aloud, prayed the 5 psalms. Psalm 35 to call upon God as their advocate, Psalm 109 to execute judgment, Psalm 83 to expose the demonic alliance behind the curse, Psalm 140 to overturn every trap, and Psalm 91 with a declaration of overturning. On the 10th day, something strange happened. A member of the family, who wasn't very spiritually engaged, had a dream. In this dream, she saw an old woman, a long-deceased ancestor, standing in a dark forest performing rituals. This ancestor cried out in the dream, "Stop praying. You're destroying everything I